What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? NoZoupForYou here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Tier 8 German battleship Odin. Observe, detect, identify, neutralize. And that is not what Odin stands for. In the game, at least, that's actually a task force that was on my base in Iraq. They flew missions and identified targets from above and did all that cool stuff. So, very neat, Odin. Just kind of a callback for me. Kind of reminded me of that. But no, that's not what it is. The Odin is a German battleship, and it's an interesting one nonetheless. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you my feels of the ship, what I think of it right now in testing, and where it fits into the scheme of things, because it is a Tier 8 battleship, and we already have the Tirpitz and we have the Bismarck. So we get another German battleship, and I don't have an issue with this because I love German battleships, or at least I used to love German battleships. I think they've been power creeped a little bit, but if you've been paying attention to the news, that's getting fixed just a tad. They're getting some buffs for the German battleships. So let's get started. Let's talk about the stats of this battleship. Starting with survivability, you've got 62,700 hit points. That's roughly 5,000 or 6,000 more hit points than the Scharnhorst has. And I'm going to be comparing the ship a lot to the Scharnhorst because really, it is a bigger Scharnhorst. It looks similar to the Scharnhorst, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Scharnhorst is dead sexy. This battleship is absolutely dead sexy. I love the way she looks. I mean, she's a German battleship. What do you expect? I mean, it's going to look good. Everything she's going to do with style. Might not be the best, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Artillery, you're looking at 3 guns with 3 turrets each, and those are 305 millimeters. The interesting thing about these guns is they're kind of middling. And what do I mean by middling? Well, they're just kind of in the middle of the German battleships that she's around. Bismarck and Tirpitz have bigger guns. Scharnhorst, of course, is at Tier 7, and it has slightly less sized guns. But 305 millimeters just isn't that big at all. And that's really going to be the biggest thing that kind of hurts the Odin. Her guns. I mean, yeah, they can do a lot of damage. They can wreak havoc in the right situation, but getting citadels on Tier 9 and 10 battleships is going to be tough with your AP. And even against battleships of your own tier, you have to be pretty darn close. You have to hit them right. And I mean, the shell velocity on these, it's decent enough. I mean, shell velocity is 865 meters per second. I think that's similar to what the North Carolina is, but North Carolina's got bigger shells. These things just don't have the hitting power of everything else. Now, on the plus side, your reload is going to be 20 seconds on these guns. They reload pretty quick. So the fact that they're smaller and don't hit as hard is made up for by the fact that you can fire them more often. And again, if you're facing off against other battleships, if they're broadside to, yeah, you're going to chunk 15,000 damage off of them, 20,000 damage. You might not get the citadels, but you're going to do a lot of damage. And provided they stay silly and broadside to you, you can get some more rounds off and damage them some more. But again, your penetrating power of these shells is just not what your other Tier 8 battleships are going to be. Not what the Massachusetts is going to be, the North Carolina, even the Bismarck, and the Tirpitz. So this is probably the biggest detractor for this ship, in my opinion. Secondaries, you've got those typical German secondaries. Those things can reach out and touch at over 11 kilometers if you build it as a secondary spec ship. And I suspect many of you have wanted Scharnhorst to be that way for a long time, or imagine what it'd be like if you had a Scharnhorst that could fire 11 kilometers. Well, if you've always been wondering, you can do that now. You can do that with this ship. Another cool thing about this ship is, like Tirpitz, you do have torpedoes. You can launch 4 per side. They have a range of 6 kilometers, and they have a speed of 64 knots. And they're fun. I'll be honest, they're a lot of fun. Just in the way that the Tirpitz is fun. It's awesome just taking a moment to push, and you come up on another battleship, and they're not expecting the torpedoes because no one's expecting the torpedoes, especially on a new ship that people aren't familiar with, and all of a sudden you launch 4 torps out the side, and boop, 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 knock their damage way down. It's just a lot of fun. I will say that this ship is very fun to brawl in, to an extent, because its armor just isn't quite as good as the Tirpitz or the Bismarck, in my opinion. And that's another thing about this ship that's kind of a detractor. I mean, it gets pinned pretty easily. It does have decent survivability. I mean, it's not horrible. And again, you know, I've survived broadsides very close to enemy battleships that would have taken out North Carolinas or other country ships, but we all know about German battleship armor, and it can be a godsend in many situations. But still, at range everywhere else, you're going to have chunks taken off. I had Jean Bart slaughtering me at weird angles, so that's another issue with this ship. AA defense, no qualms with that. It's not that bad, and in fact, I had a round where I shot down, I think it was 78 airplanes. Granted, I was against a Tier 8 and a Tier 6 aircraft carrier at the same time, but they threw everything in the kitchen sink at me, and I came out the winner in that battle, so that was pretty fun. So I've got no issues with the anti-aircraft capabilities. Of course, untried against Tier 10, so I suspect it wouldn't do quite as well. Maneuverability, well, it's similar to a Scharnhorst. Maximum speed of 31.5 knots. Turning circle radius of 790 meters, which is pretty good. Rudder shift time, 14 seconds. So yeah, I mean, the ship's fast, relatively fast. And it's got the moves. I like it. It feels like a Scharnhorst. Just a Tier 8 Scharnhorst, which is basically what this ship is. Concealment, you can get this thing down to 12 kilometers, which that's not too shabby whatsoever. That's actually really nice. So the ship can sneak up and pounce on cruisers if they're not careful. So those are the stats on this Tier 8 German battleship. Let me give you my initial impressions of this ship and the feeling, just how I felt when I played this ship. Let's talk about our feelings. Sorry, I'll get back to the point right here. All right, so Odin. I want to love it. I really do. Like I said, it's a Scharnhorst, basically. A Tier 8 Scharnhorst. And I love the Scharnhorst. But the Scharnhorst is at a good tier. 7. It's in a good spot. Tier 8, we know the situation with Tier 8 battleships. Or Tier 8 ships in general. Tier 8 is kind of the punching bag out of the 10 tiers. So you're going to face Tier 10 ships. And while some ships like Massachusetts do perfectly fine up against Tier 10 ships, this one not quite as well. Now, it can hold its own, and you can have a lot of fun in it. I've had rounds where I had fun. I mean, there is just a very cool aspect of this ship. Punching up through the middle, firing torps off both sides, using your guns to devastate cruisers, which the guns are pretty effective at that. While you might have a hard time citadeling battleships, you'll do fine against cruisers for the most part. So that's the fun aspect of this ship. It is basically a fast raider. It's a Scharnhorst. But when you're playing against Tier 10s, you can't always play it that way. You can't play it as a fast raider because you don't want to push too hard, too far, too fast in this ship. So where does this leave this ship right here in this preview, in this work-in-progress ship, which I didn't say earlier, but yes, it is a work in progress. And Wargaming did give this to me for testing, which I've got to say that also because of the FCC, apparently. Where does it leave this ship? Well, it puts it in a weird spot. I mean, you've got some great Tier 8 battleships already. You've got Massachusetts. You've got Tirpitz, and I'm talking premium. And you've got Jean Bart. I mean, those three alone are great. Tirpitz have been power creeped a little bit, but with those ships there, you know, I don't know how this ship is going to come to us. I don't know if they're going to sell it straight out. I don't know if it's going to be a coal ship or what. But if there were the option to buy this ship up against other ships, like the Massachusetts, it's a no-brainer. I'd take the Massachusetts over this ship because you've got the same range on your secondaries and you've got bigger, harder-hitting guns. Same goes for the Tirpitz. I think the Tirpitz has better survivability. I mean, this ship's survivability is just a little on the weak side. So, overall, I mean, I had some fun rounds in this ship, and I had some fun moments, but I didn't have complete fun games. There were games where I cobbled together some decent damage, but nothing spectacular. There were rounds where I had some epic moments, those charging up the middle, launching torps, but once those epic moments were over, you didn't have enough health left to do anything else, or you sunk part of those epic moments. So really, this ship is almost a YOLO ship. It's kind of dangerous in a way. I think in the hands of a newer player or a player that doesn't like sitting back, this is pretty much just going to be a charge in, do as much damage as you can type of ship, or you're going to be scared to push and you're going to be trying to play on the backside using your guns and just kiting. So I think there needs to be a little work with this ship. My feeling is it needs a buff to its armor or something that gives it a little more survivability. I mean, I will say on the positive side, your heals replenish pretty quickly. So you can rep damage fairly often and fairly quickly. But outside of this, I mean, it is very much a tier 7 Scharnhorst put up at tier 8. You've just got slightly larger guns, you've got slightly more hit points, but outside of that, there's not much different about it. I mean, imagine you've got a Scharnhorst playing against tier 9s, and this is basically the same thing playing against tier 10s. So, I want to love this ship. I really do. I think it's a beautiful ship. It looks gorgeous. It handles well. It's got fast reloading guns. The torps are cool, but the armor and just the lack of impact, for lack of a better word, for its shells, you know, that penetration factor, it's just not there. So you're left with a ship it's not weak, but it's not strong. And maybe that's considered balance. I don't know, but we've had much better ships come out recently that would make me want something more out of this ship before I spend my money on it. And that's just my feeling. That's just my feeling. But I think players can have fun in her. I've had fun in her. It just all depends on matchmaking and what kind of ship suits your style. I mean, if you love the Scharnhorst, this might be a must-have for you. Because, again, it is very similar to a Scharnhorst. But we'll have to wait and see. I'd be interested to see if we get any more buffs to this ship, or they change anything else around. That's your Tier 8 Odin. Kriegsmarine battleship coming soon to World of Warships. We don't know when. Work in progress. Maybe things will change. Who knows? Tell me what you think about the Odin. Are you looking forward to it? Do you think this ship matches your play style, or is something that you want? Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you all later. Zoop out.